Hello, a very warm good evening to all of you and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to the first session of Conquer Prelims for the portion of Environment and Ecology, where from today we shall be embarking upon a journey whereby the aim is to cover all the important areas relevant for the portion of environment ecology, so that this should serve as an entire capsule for your preparation of prelims examination. The details about the schedule and why you should attend about these sessions is something we'll come at very shortly. But before that, a couple of important announcements. The first announcement with regards to the Unacademy Civil Services Championship test. Do attend this test tomorrow. This is a particular test where the questions have been set as per the standards of civil services examination, and a good score here will help you earn a very good and different varieties of prizes thereby. Having said that, another announcement regarding the launch of the geography optional. So a detailed session for the geography optional and a detailed course for geography optional is going to be launched from next month, and this is owing to the huge demand with regards to geography as an optional subject. So for the first time, Unacademy brings to you a detailed course of geography optional spanning across 350 plus hours, covering the various different aspects and nuances of the optional. You can join the discussions for this optional, the notes associated with this. You can attend this by joining this Telegram channel. The group is there, and you can always attend the sessions which starts from next month. Now, having said that, from today, we embark upon a journey for the discussion of environment ecology and also the portion of places in use. Now here immediately, when we talk about the subject of environment and ecology, the anxiety which is created in the mindset of the candidates is that for environment ecology, what do I have to study? Do I have to learn all the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries and tiger reserves out there? That is the first thought which comes to the mind, that I have to ratify all the Ramsar lists, I have to go for mugging it up. Now these sessions are going to be helpful in that way, because if you think about it, how many protected areas do we have across the country? Across the country, we have 100 plus national parks, 500 plus wildlife sanctuaries, 50 plus tiger reserves, 30 plus elephant reserves, many of the biodiversity heritage sites, many of the biosphere reserves, around 80 Ramsar sites, around 73 critically endangered species. So what is it that we can learn? There's a limitation to that. Generally, if you analyze the trend that UPSC has been following, UPSC has been asking questions from this area, but only those areas which are relevant for the news for the past 12 to 18 months. In this particular series, we shall be covering those particular relevant portions of current affairs for the past 12 to 18 months, which shall be helpful for your examination. In fact, the entire paper of environment ecology, if you take a look at it, the entire paper, it can be broadly classified as the portion of static as well as the portion of dynamic. Now here, while we think about the dynamic portion only as conventions, laws, amendments, etc., but you will find even the questions associated with any particular biodiversity, that is generally asked if that issue has been in news, has been in discussion. Now that is the trend that we are going to follow here also. Whichever question we are going to discuss, I will highlight to you that why we are discussing this. It is never going to be a randomized discussion of questions where you don't know what the head and the tails are going to be. So here we are going to have 4 sessions of environment and ecology. So in these 4 sessions, we are going to go for a systemic coverage of the entire subject. In the first course, that is in the first session, that is today, we are going to talk about protected areas in news. Protected areas in news. That includes the important national parks, tiger reserves, wetlands, Ramsar sites that have been in discussion. That is going to be the first session. The second session, we are going to talk about the species in news, which will help you have an overall coverage of the various critically endangered species, the vulnerable threatened species, etc., which are in news in general. Okay, so that is something we are going to cover in the second session. The third session, we are going to dedicate it to the climate conventions. For example, you had the COP, the Conference of Parties for Convention on Migratory Species. When we talk about Convention on Biological Diversity, that is another convention which has remained in headlines. So what they are. So here we are going to talk about conventions and also national laws and amendments. For example, the Forest Conservation Act has been amended. So what are the implications of it? That matter has reached the Supreme Court, right? So conventions and laws, that is going to be the third session. And the fourth session, we are going to dedicate it to some of the important topics. For example, press mud. For example, when we talk about green leaf volatiles, when we talk about climate change, climate tipping points. These are also important areas for your entirety of the subject. Oftentimes we ignore this because we are too much concentrated on national parks and wildlife. So here we are going to talk about ecosystems and climate change. But as you can guess, there still would be many of the areas, for example, biosphere reserves, biodiversity heritage sites, when it comes to various different corridors, wildlife corridors, all these detailed analysis and many of the other topics will still be left over, isn't it? That is why on the fifth day, we are going to have a marathon session for the portion of environment ecology. And this will be a comprehensive coverage of the entire syllabus of environment ecology. This is for environment and ecology. And then, just so that you don't lose your bearings and you are able to revise in a very consolidated manner, we are going to follow it with another session about places in news, where we are going to merge some portions of geography associated with the portions of environment ecology, as well as the portions of international relations which can be important for your examination. So these are the 6 sessions which are going to be conducted, and in these 6 sessions you should be able to solve any kind of question that UPSC throws at you, provided you also take care of the associated and the surrounding areas thereby. Okay, so that is going to be the aim, that is going to be the procedure. Now, how we shall go ahead with this particular session is, we shall be discussing a question as you would have seen, and I shall be opening up the question for the polls. We shall wait for your replies and responses, and eventually we shall discuss the associated areas, and as many questions as can be framed from a particular topic, we are going to discuss the different varieties of questions. It is important for you to feel comfortable with the language. Most of the times we feel that prelims is all about the process of gaining information and content. It is not so. It is about the language that UPSC plays with. That is where I want you to feel absolutely comfortable. That is why we will have a different set of questions, different types of framing and stemming of the questions, and accordingly we shall proceed ahead with the discussion. Having said that, without further ado, let us initiate the discussion from the first question of the day. And the first question: consider the following statements with reference to Ramsar sites in India. Now, the first: Sundarbans wetland is the largest Ramsar site in India in terms of its size. Second: Tamil Nadu has the largest number of wetlands as compared to all the other states. Now, wetlands which have been declared as Ramsar sites. Chilika Lake and Kyoladev National Parks are the earliest to have received Ramsar site status in India. How many of the above statements is or are correct? Only one, only two, all three of them, or none of the above? So, think about this particular question and understand each of the statements. Read these statements carefully. So here, if you take a look at these statements, first of all of these are going to deal with the aspect of Ramsar sites only. Okay. So here, Sundarban's wetland is the largest Ramsar site in India in terms of its size. Is it going to be correct? The answer is yes. In terms of absolute size, it is amongst the largest wetland sites which is present in India. Now here majority of you have given the incorrect answer. So that means we have some areas to focus upon. Now, Tamil Nadu has the largest number of wetlands as compared to other states. Is that statement correct or not? And again, here we are not referring to in general the presence of wetlands. We are discussing about the wetlands which have been declared as Ramsar sites. So here, Tamil Nadu has got 16 Ramsar sites as of now. And that is as a result of the new Ramsar sites which have been declared this year. This year, there have been 5 more sites which have been given the accreditation as Ramsar sites, and taking the total number of Ramsar sites in India to around 80. Now that makes Tamil Nadu as the state with the largest number of Ramsar sites at 16. So the second statement is also going to be correct. The third, Chilika Lake and Keoladev National Parks are the earliest to have received Ramsar site status. This is also going to be correct. That is, in the early 80s itself, around 81, was when these two wetlands were accorded with the status of Ramsar sites. So here, all three of them, that is C, that is going to be the correct answer. So all those who had marked C means you are in a good position here. Now here, if you talk about these Ramsar sites, why are we discussing this? That is basically because of the news story which has been doing rounds, that 5 more Indian wetlands have been added to the Ramsar list. Now one has to understand that you cannot go around and learning all the 80 Ramsar sites that India has. First of all, not possible. Secondly, even if it is possible, even if let's suppose I assume that you guys are genius and born extraordinaire, still you have to understand by the time that you are learning all those 80 Ramsar sites, there will be different species that you have to understand, location that you have to understand. You might end up ignoring a lot of topics. And UPSC doesn't ask you about any random Ramsar sites. UPSC, if it asks you a question, it will be directed towards the newly added Ramsar sites. So here, you have to study those 5 new additions. But before that, what is a Ramsar site? Very briefly. Now, wetlands, muddy areas, marshes, all these small water bodies, ponds, lakes, reservoirs, they have always served as a very vital part of the ecosystem, helping in nutrient cycle generation, right? The nutrient cycling, the carbon cycle, for example, the water cycle, for example. So there, wetlands have always had an importance. But then, what is relevant for environment or ecology is not oftentimes given that much amount of importance in terms of developmental race. So various different countries, they had embarked upon encroachment of these wetlands and these particular water bodies and carried out the construction and the destruction of these natural spaces. Now one has to understand that these wetlands are what? What is the definition of a wetland? Basically, it is an ecosystem which is a transition between a terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, right? So here you will have some of the plant species but submerged in water. Some of the terrestrial species of plants also you will find. Now these are the areas ideal for source of drinking water, filtration of water, removal of contaminated water as a particular destination for various different migratory birds, and so on. So its importance was realized by the conservationists for a long period of time. So they all met together for the first time in 1962 under the aegis of what was referred to as the Mar Conference. As it is famously said, chronology is important. So understand the chronology here. It is in 1962 when for the first time Mar Conference was held. And here the discussion was undertaken about the importance of conserving the marshes. Mar here stands for marshes, marshy land. And there was a decision that we have to protect these marshy lands, these wetlands. Now, there is some time which is consumed in developing a global consensus. It took almost around 9 years to develop a global consensus, and that was followed in 1971 by the Ramsar Convention. Now this Ramsar Convention, it is named as Ramsar Convention based upon the place where it was signed. Ramsar as a place in Iran, that is where all the parties, they agreed to protect these particular wetlands. And that is when the Ramsar Convention came into existence. Amongst the first Ramsar sites which were declared in the world, it was declared in Australia. In India, the declaration started from around 1981. Now, when we talk about declaration as a Ramsar site, so can any wetland be declared as a Ramsar site? What do you think? Can any particular wetland be declared as a Ramsar site? What is the procedure there? It is not a free-for-all strategy. It is not going to be the case that any wetland, even in my backyard, I can declare it as a Ramsar site. There's a process involved. There's a criteria involved. The convention basically follows a 9-point criteria list for the declaration as a Ramsar site. While it is not important for you to learn what are those 9-point criteria, but it is relevant for you to understand what that criteria actually revolves around. So if you take a look at it, so for example, sites containing representative, rare or unique wetland types, that is the first criteria. Okay, let's suppose you have a very unique estuarine ecosystem, an estuary, where not only cultivation can be carried out, but at the same time, maybe aquaculture can be carried out. Maybe there can be a large group of migratory bird species which are coming to that area. So that unique kind of water body, if it is present, maybe an inland drainage system, maybe an alkaline lake which develops, so they can be declared as a Ramsar site. So it should be considered internationally important if it contains representative, rare or unique example of natural or near natural wetland type. This is based upon the criteria of the type of ecosystem. If the ecosystem is unique, declare it. But there are other criteria also. Criteria is based upon the species of fishes or birds, for example. If you have unique kind of birds, unique kinds of waterfowl, as they are referred to, waterfowl as in those species of birds who frequent these water bodies in order to have the availability of food, for example, food, nourishment, etc. So here, basically, species and ecological communities. So accordingly, if that wetland has got and supports vulnerable, endangered or critically endangered species, then again it can be declared as a Ramsar site. If a wetland consists of animal species or plant species which are important for maintaining the biological diversity, then also it can be declared as a Ramsar site. Then when we talk about the animal or the plant species at a critical stage in their life cycle or refuge to the various biodiversity during adverse conditions. So like that, you have 9 criteria here. Please understand. From this also a multiple statement question can be framed. A multiple statement question asking you that when is it that a site can be declared as a Ramsar site. Okay. So that is how you have these sites to be declared. For example, if it has got more than 20,000 or more of water birds, for example, if it supports 1% of the population of a subspecies of water birds, so all these are kept in mind. Now here, presently, India has got 80 different Ramsar sites. These are the various Ramsar sites present across the country, and this is as per the previous one. Now 5 more has been added to this. Now here you will observe what is important for your examination, few of the important omissions. UPSC can always ask you, which of these states do not have any designated Ramsar site? So that kind of a question also can be asked. So you have to be prepared for that. So for that example, if you take the case of Jharkhand, if you take the case of Chhattisgarh, if you take the case of Telangana, if you take the case of Arunachal, these are the particular states where you don't have any of these, including Sikkim, etc. But these are amongst the major states with no Ramsar sites. So here, no Ramsar sites. So while Tamil Nadu has got 16, there are many of them who don't have the international accreditation. So here you have Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Jharkhand, Arunachal, Sikkim. These are some of the important ones. Okay? Now, these 75, please don't start learning. Learn what are the new additions. So what are the new additions? These are the 5 new additions which have happened this year. Now, generally, the accreditation for a Ramsar site is awarded on the World Wetlands Day. When is it that we celebrate the World Wetlands Day? When is it that the World Wetland Day is celebrated? Are we aware of that? It is celebrated on 2nd of Feb. Very good. 2nd of Feb is when we have the World Wetlands Day, which is celebrated. And it is on this day, generally, when the new sites, new wetlands are given the accreditation. Okay, so these are the new sites. So you have the Keravati Bird Sanctuary, then you have the Longwood Shola Reserve Forest. Now this Longwood Shola Reserve Forest, which exists in the region around the entire Nilgiris, this is amongst the higher portions or higher Ramsar sites, high altitude Ramsar sites, provides drinking water facilities to a lot of population in the lower areas, and also is a source or is a place of international bird importance because of the number of migratory birds which flock to this area. Then when you talk about the Mhadei Conservation Reserve and the Anka Samudra Bird Conservation Reserve, these both are man-made water bodies. Okay? Others are natural. This is basically man-made. And then you have Aghanashini estuary on the sides of the Aghanashini river also. So a brief about all of these. The Keravati Bird Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu spreads over 453 hectares, one of the most important freshwater feeding grounds for the migratory species of birds, and is the nesting site for threatened species like spotted eagle and the tawny eagle. That is why it has been declared. Okay, then the mangroves across the Aghanashini river act as a nursery for fishes and prawns and are considered as important breeding ground. This is an important estuary, guys. Estuaries are very important water areas. So in these estuaries, you can have the presence of saltwater fishes also, freshwater fishes also. So that is why the waterfowl species get a very varied kind of dietary input. So that is why they frequent this area. This has been under a demand for a long period of time for this region to be declared as a Ramsar site. Okay. Now, after this, let us take a look at the question which can be framed. Situated in the Nilgiris, it is amongst the last vestiges of urban shola forest where everything else has been lost to tea cultivation and other land use changes. It is a high altitude wetland that acts as a water source for 18 villages downstreams and is also considered an important water bird area, hosting several endemic bird species. Which of the Ramsar sites is being mentioned here? Even though we have just discussed that, we have just mentioned that, but just to give you an idea, this is a kind of a question which can be framed from here. So here basically the answer is going to be what? The answer is good. Please don't get this incorrect. That would have a tremendous representation on your concentration levels. So I hope everybody gets this correct, right? So here basically the answer is going to be Longwood Shola Reserve Forest that is present in the region of Nilgiris. Okay, that is what is present in the region of Nilgiris and that needs absolute conservation. Now, Aghanashini is also something that we have discussed. So another kind of question which can be framed from here is, which of these rivers drain into the Arabian Sea? Aghanashini, Bharatpuya and Zuari. Which of these drain into the Arabian Sea? That is east to west flowing rivers. Select the correct answer from the codes below. 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 3, 1 and 3 only. Which of them drain into Arabian Sea? Let me see. So Aghanashini is something that we have just now discussed, that it is a small river which drains into the Arabian Sea and before meeting the Arabian Sea forms an estuarine ecosystem which is basically very, very fertile for the fishes and for the bird species as well. So this obviously drains. Then you have Bharatpuya. Bharatpuya is also a small river draining through the Malabar coastline which eventually empties its water into the region of Arabian Sea. And then you have River Zuari. River Zuari drains through which particular state? River Zuari drains through the state of Goa and is again one of those west flowing small rivers which again forms a very significant estuarine ecosystem before meeting the sea. It is across the banks of River Zuari where you have the very prominent and the very famous Khazan ecosystem which oftentimes remains in news. Now what is this Khazan ecosystem? That is a very unique ecosystem developed in the estuarine region where the salt water of the sea is allowed to come in. Some varieties of rice are grown there and that water in many of the cases is stopped, right? The flow is stopped. It is bounded by barricades and eventually what you have is that in this particular pool of water you end up growing and rearing shrimps and prawns. So that is what aquaculture can also be carried out. So Khazan ecosystem is basically well known for aquaculture as well as paddy cultivation. Okay. And why it is famous? Many places can be there where this can be carried out. It is carried out in the region of the estuary. You have to understand that when there is formation of an estuary, whenever a river creates an estuary, what is an estuary? So basically, if you assume, let's suppose the land area where you have a particular river. Let's suppose this is your river and this is meeting the sea here. Here you have land and here also you have the land area. Now as this river drains into the sea, basically it is here that there is an opening, a wide mouth where some of the sea water also enters in. As a result of that, the speed of the river flow substantially reduces and the river carries out certain deposits, creating very small island-like portions, right? So these deposits are oftentimes also created. These are very random set of deposits depending upon the flow of the river. Now here, it is in these deposited portions that you can carry out paddy cultivation. Now estuaries, this entire zone is what is referred to as an estuary. This entire zone. Now estuaries generally have a very high load of biodiversity, very large amount of biodiversity. And why is that? Because at one end, in this particular portion, you have the presence of saline water. And then, as you move to the river side, here you have the presence of fresh water. So both saline and freshwater ecosystems are present. So you can imagine, if I name this place as 1, if I name this place as 2, in the region around 1, I will have those kind of species which are adaptable to the saline ecosystem. At the region of 2, I will have those kind of species which are adaptable to the freshwater ecosystem. And in between, you will have the zones where both of them can survive. So very, very rich in terms of biodiversity. Generally, you will have a lot of mangrove population, and the roots of the mangroves, that serves as the breeding ground, because along the roots, that is where you have the organic compounds which are also given out by those trees, and those organic compounds are important for the survivability of species. So here the answer will be C. 1, 2 and 3, all of them are correct. Now, then, it is India's second largest wetland, having its water from 4 rivers. That is, here you have the name of the 4 rivers, that is Meenachil, then Achankovil, Pampa and Manimala. It is facing increased contraction of size due to silting and land reclamation. It is the longest lake in India and hosts the famous boat race. It has the Kumarakam Bird Sanctuary on its eastern side. Which Ramsar site is referred to in the above passage? Bhitarkanika, Chilika Lake, Vembanad Kol and Astamudi Wetland. Which of them are being mentioned here? Look at each of the statements here carefully, guys. Okay? And then come to the answer. So here, most of you, as you are discussing amongst yourself as well, and when you are giving the answer, most of you are correct. It is basically Vembanad Kol wetland, and Vembanad Kol wetland has been in news again because of encroachment from various areas, due to which the size is reducing but also the depth is reducing. So understand, why does the depth reduce? Any particular lake, when it gets older and when it has got a lot of runoff from nearby areas, due to maybe there is a significant amount of deforestation, etc. So the normal rainfall will also end up leading to significant amount of sheet and splash erosion, and all those small sedimentary particles will deposit themselves in that water body. Due to which, in the case of Vembanad Kol, the depth which was earlier at around 9 meters, that is how deep it was, it has been reduced to somewhere around 3 meters. So there has been significant reduction. Now what is the impact due to it? If the depth has reduced, so what? That means the biodiversity when it comes to fish population, that will reduce. Now fishes in general will utilize the space, the plants will also utilize the space. So when it comes to the breeding ground and the spawning ground for the fishes, for the new fishes to hatch over, that space will be consumed. And once that is impacted, you can imagine that even the Kumarakam Bird Sanctuary will also have an impact. Okay, that is why this was a question which was in news. Okay, now coming to the next question, but before that, I would suggest all the smart candidates to slightly hold their horses and answer when the polls are being operated. Okay, so that the others also have got a chance without any external influence. Now, which of the wildlife sanctuaries has been singled out for the reintroduction of lions from Gir Wildlife Sanctuary as per the objectives of lion at 2047 a vision for Amrit Kal. Kuno Wildlife, Barda Wildlife, Nal Sarovar and Thol Wildlife Sanctuary. Which amongst them have been singled out for the relocation of the lion species? Now, as you might be aware, that lions in particular require relocation in India significantly. And why is it so? Why do lions in India require relocation? So in India, you have a variety of lions, a species of lion, that is the Asiatic lion. Right? And you don't have any genetic diversity which is available. Okay, so we will come to the discussion of that, but before that, before you start typing in the answers, here the correct answer is basically the Barda Wildlife Sanctuary. Barda Wildlife Sanctuary in Gujarat has been singled out for the relocation of lions. Earlier, you had the case where Kuno was singled out, but that was more than a decade back now. When Project Lion was reintroduced and restarted, that is when some of the wild areas such as Jessore, such as Barda, they had been singled out. Now, coming back to the need for relocation. Now, in India, you don't have any genetic diversity for the lions. Now, when the genetic diversity is not present, means what? That the lions can get influenced by any particular disease, any communicable disease, any natural disaster. And if let's suppose the lions were found in Gujarat also, if let's suppose lions were found in Madhya Pradesh also, Karnataka also, which was the case earlier, then still, if let's suppose the lions in Karnataka are impacted by a disease, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh regions, they will remain isolated. But in India, what do we have is all the Asiatic lions, all the lions that we have, they are situated in that forest, Gir forest. That is why the name Gir lions. Now, there has been a lot of to and fro going around about the fact of relocation. So much so that this made headline last year when Madhya Pradesh put an allegation to the Gujarat government that Gujarat government is basically turning out to be over-possessive. Yes, that was the term used. Over-possessive for the Asiatic lions. So that is why here one has to understand that in order to save the lions, you need to change their location, because even that region of Gir is turning out to be overpopulated and there can be significant breach of that habitat and leading to more man-animal conflicts in the offing. Okay, now lions, what is the habitat that they prefer? So this was the news story that you came across, that second home for Gujarat lions, 40 big cats to be moved to Barda from overflowing Gir. Now when we talk about the habitat, what is the habitat which is required for the presence of lions? For the presence of lions, you do need a kind of a semi-arid condition, dry deciduous to scrub kind of forest, right? So you need dry deciduous forests to scrub vegetation. That is needed. You see, for a long period of time, those of you who have answered Kuno, it is not as if you are absolutely misplaced in the sense that you have taken a random guess. Since 60s onwards, India had been negotiating with Iran for the relocation of cheetahs. And the concept was, and the idea was that cheetahs would be brought to Kuno, and simultaneously Environment Ministry floated another plan that, we will relocate the lions in some area around Uttar Pradesh, western portion, or in the region of Madhya Pradesh. It was only in the 2000s when this erupted, in the sense this matter reached the doorsteps of the Supreme Court. And why did it reach the doorsteps of Supreme Court? Because on one hand, Environment Ministry was basically negotiating with the African countries for the relocation of cheetah, and Iran also, the negotiations were going on, and simultaneously a notification was issued that in the region of Kuno, we will reintroduce and relocate lions also. So the Gujarat government, based upon the allegation that Madhya Pradesh has put, Gujarat government approached the Supreme Court that we cannot relocate lions into the region of Kuno. That will mean overpopulation, over competition, and it can virtually mean that the cheetahs will also die, lions will also die. That is when it was changed, and the relocation plan has been now changed. However, the latest report which has been released by IUCN a couple of days back, that talks about the importance and the various conservation measures which have been carried out in Gir, and has put forward a data pointer that in the region of Gir, the lions are 4 to 5 times more safer as compared to the lions that you find in the region of Africa. In the region of Tanzania, for example, in 1994, and this highlights the importance of having genetic diversity. You see, in the region of Tanzania, surrounding the area of Serengeti, you had at one go in 1994, 1,000 lions which died. That was a kind of a mass death. And that was because of what? That was because of a disease. And what was the disease? That was basically the canine distemper virus. Canine distemper virus, CDV. Right? So which species does it impact? It will impact the lion species. So Project Lion talks about relocation of lion species. Now, having said that, when we talk about wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, this also creates a lot of anxious moments. Now, wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, they have got their authentication, they have got the kind of validation based upon the Wildlife Act of 1972. Okay, I will talk about the differences also, but while talking about the differences, many of the times we are not aware about the similarities. So what are the similarities? Both derive their formation from the Wildlife Act 1972. Which state government or central government, who can declare a region as national park or wildlife sanctuary? Who is the one who is responsible for the declaration of a protected area as a national park or a wildlife sanctuary? Is it both? Is it the state government, or is it the case only the central government? So in this case, initially, the recommendation is made by the state. Recommendation by state. And then the Wildlife Authority approves it. Then after that, getting the approval from the center, it is declared. However, under certain conditions, the central government can also end up declaring a region as a national park or a wildlife sanctuary. So yes, both of them can declare that as a national park or a wildlife sanctuary. Having said that, what are the differences between them? So in the case of national park, the degree of protection for the different species is more, whereas in the case of wildlife sanctuary, here there's a slightly more relaxed environment. Okay, no livestock or grazing activities permitted in national park, whereas local communities are allowed to carry out certain activities when it comes to wildlife sanctuaries. Now, national parks are not created for any particular species. It is created for the conservation of the larger ecosystem. But when we talk about wildlife sanctuaries, it is species specific. Okay, a particular species that is aimed to be protected. That is why you have the wildlife sanctuary. Okay, now after this, let us take another question. Situated, this is again a paragraph kind of a question which is turning out to be the trend. Situated in the vicinity of Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary, this protected area has been designated an international bird area for hosting several bird species like the Malabar parakeet and Rufous babbler. It houses a rich biodiversity including the Indian gaur, tigers, and the big four of the venomous snakes in India, that is Indian krait, Russell's viper, spectacled cobra, and saw-scaled viper. Which of these protected areas are mentioned in the paragraph above? You have Mhadei Wildlife Sanctuary, Anshi Dandeli Tiger Reserve, Bandipur Tiger Reserve and Kudremukh National Park. Which of them are being mentioned in this particular paragraph? So think about it. So here you have certain traits from which you can actually figure out the answer. And the traits are basically the species which are found. So here if you think about it, this is a region which has got birds also. This is a region where the tigers are also present. And more importantly, this is the region where you have a lot of snake species as well. So snake species in particularly large diversity are to be found where? Across the region of the Western Ghats. Okay, in the region of Western Ghats where you have high amount of rainfall, that is where you find them. So the answer here is Mhadei Wildlife Sanctuary, which is situated in Goa. And this had been in news last year. That is because there was a recommendation that this has to be notified, this shall be notified as the Tiger Reserve. The NTCA had made a recommendation. And that is when you had the entire region coming in news. There were some protests also ensuing in the localized area that if you declare it as a tiger reserve means there will be greater restrictions, we won't be allowed to move, the locals won't have those many activities that they can pursue. So this is your Mhadei Wildlife Sanctuary, which is situated next to Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, I hope this is understood. Now here, another important fact that you can attribute from here, which is again relevant for your prelims in a multiple statement question, about how is it that a tiger reserve eventually is declared. So they are notified initially by the state governments as per the provisions of section 38(5) of the Wildlife Conservation Act 1972 on the advice of NTCA. Is NTCA a statutory body or is it a non-statutory body? What do you think? When we talk about National Tiger Conservation Authority, is it a statutory organization or a non-statutory organization? Because that is again important aspect to understand. Very good. It is a statutory body. This is a statutory body. So here, animal conservation in general was regarded much importance. That is when the Wildlife Act was passed. But under which particular act has this NTCA been provided that statutory status? It is basically the amendment to the Wildlife Act of 1972, the amendment which was carried out in 2006. Very good. Saurabh, Khushbu, very good. So this is where you have these amendments which basically have been carried out in the Wildlife Act to make it more suitable. Why this was done? Because understand and imagine and you have to basically understand the entire context of it. Tiger conservation and protection of tigers was not gaining much ground. Project Tiger, which was launched way back in 1973, at that point of time, tiger census gave us how many tigers? Close to around 1400. Now, around 2006, again, the number was similar to around 1400. That means the tigers were not being conserved. Now, National Tiger Conservation Authority has been an apex organization when it comes to issuing directives associated with the core zone, activities associated in the buffer zone, what activities can be allowed, what activities are prohibited. So that is the norm. But NTC, even when it comes to basically altering the boundary of a tiger reserve, there also NTCA is and its recommendation is considered. But in order for NTCA to have some teeth, there was a tiger task force which was set up. This tiger task force was set up around 2005, and this was owing to the huge governmental pressure, huge public pressure on the government, because multiple tigers had died and the numbers were very low. So owing to that recommendation, there was an amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act and NTCA was given the statutory status. So first of all, proposal is obtained from the state. In principle, approval is communicated from NTCA. So NTCA needs to approve that. And that is where NTCA looks at the surrounding region also, whether there is going to be a man-animal conflict or not, whether the local tribes, they are getting aggravated or not. And this is where again another tiger reserve, another such designated, to be designated tiger reserve has been in news. We'll take up that question as well. Now here the recommendation is given and recommends the proposal to the state after due diligence, and the state government can notify the area as the tiger reserve. Now, can we have the situation where the central government declares an area as a tiger reserve? What do you think? Statutory basically means that you have an organization which has been set up as per the statute, as per the law of the land. So any particular organization which has been set up as per any particular law, that is a statutory body. Okay? So in this case, yes, it can be recommended, and even the central government, owing to certain critical habitats, can recommend an area to be declared as a tiger reserve. Now, arrange the following protected areas as one moves from north to south. Pong Dam Wildlife Sanctuary, Kuno Wildlife Sanctuary, Overa Aru Wildlife Sanctuary, and Surisar Mansar Wildlife Sanctuary. So arrange these protected areas from north to south. So where are these? Okay, so 3412, 1342. So you have to understand them. I'll give you a kind of a hint. Out of these, if you think about it, two of them are situated in the region of Jammu Kashmir, and they have been in news. That is why we are discussing this. We have not randomly picked up a protected area and thrown it at you just to make the question difficult. But this is where the questions basically arise from. Now, Pong Dam Wildlife Sanctuary is built on which particular river? Do we have an idea? Pong Dam is built on which particular river? It is basically on River Beas. This is situated in the region of Himachal Pradesh. Kuno Wildlife Sanctuary is where? It is basically situated in Madhya Pradesh. I like the confidence with which people are marking B. Okay. Then when we talk about Overa Aru Wildlife Sanctuary, it is situated in the region of Jammu and Kashmir. Surinsar Mansar Wildlife Sanctuary, also situated in the region of Jammu and Kashmir. So here, the correct answer, the correct order is basically 3, 4, 1 and 2. That is A is the correct answer in this case. Okay, 2 being the southernmost here. Overa Aru is situated slightly to the north. So if you look at this particular map, this is where you'll find the presence of Overa Aru. Right? It is not the northernmost protected area that we have. You have Dachigam, which is situated to the north of it, right? Hemis High Altitude Reserve is almost situated at the similar latitude. Here you have Surinsar Mansar. Okay, that is where it is situated. Now, if you talk about it, in the case of Pong Dam, why it has been in news? This has been in discussion owing to the protest by the locals. Now the locals are protesting why? Because in the region of Pong Dam, the government decision has been that the entire region will be declared, the surrounding area will be declared as the eco-sensitive zone. Now, eco-sensitive zone means that some of the activities, the general human activities in the surrounding villages, they shall be prohibited. Now, understand this. What is the issue with this? Basically, this dam, Pong Dam, has got water filled in it for basically around 4 months. For the remaining portion of the year, the large portions of the dams are dry. It is in those particular dry seasons where you have the farming and cultivational activities that is basically carried out. Cultivation by farmers is carried out. Now, if an eco-sensitive zone is declared, then the farmers in that region, they won't be able to cultivate that area. And that will lead to significant amount of issues, significant amount of revenue loss, income loss for the farming community. Now, if you think about it, should that region be declared as an eco-sensitive zone? Yes or no? What is your opinion in this? Most of you would have the general argument that, look, when it comes to the kind of farming community, you have to respect their income also. So don't declare it as an eco-sensitive zone. But good to see that majority of you agree with the fact that it should be declared. The reason is that if you carry out cultivation in the surrounding area of the dam, that particular dam is an important international bird area as well. Now, agriculture and cultivation will eventually lead to the runoff being generated, and there will be significant amount of excessive of nutrients, pesticides, fertilizers, which will end up in the water body. In that larger lake, there will be substantial amount of accumulation. That is where there is a drawback. It can lead to harmful algal bloom. It can lead to creation of hypoxic waters. Hypoxic waters mean water which is devoid of any particular oxygen supply. So the species of fishes suddenly start to die. Right? So that is why it needs to be declared as an eco-sensitive zone. Now, even when we talk about Ovra Aru or we talk about Surinsar, that has also been in news because of the declaration of eco-sensitive zones. Now, declaration as eco-sensitive zones mean that the surrounding region, the surrounding unauthorized construction activities, they are being demolished there. Now, one thing important for your examination out of this, Ovra Aru is also a region where you will find the presence of the state animal of Jammu Kashmir. And what is that state animal? It is basically the Kashmiri stag, right? Or the hangul. So there you will find this, and the river which drains through this area. Which is the river? So here you have Lidder River. Lidder River. Lidder River is a part of which river system? It is basically a tributary of river Jhelum. Tributary of Jhelum. So this will work for your map pointing as well. Then Surisar Mansar Wildlife Sanctuary, which is the river draining through this area. This is basically river Tavi. River Tavi drains through this region. In the region of Kuno, you have a small river named Kuno itself, and here you have river Byas, which drains into this particular area. Okay. Now, consider the following pairs of the protected area and the state where they are in. Valmiki Tiger Reserve, Bihar; Dampa Wildlife Sanctuary, Manipur; Jessore Wildlife Sanctuary, Gujarat; and Nugu Wildlife Sanctuary, Karnataka. How many pairs given above is or are correctly matched? Now, why we are discussing this? Because out of these, two of the places have been in news, have been in significant discussion. Okay, so here basically, what are the portions which are correctly matched and which is the one which is incorrectly matched? So Valmiki Tiger Reserve is situated in the Tarai belt in the northern extremity of Bihar. That is where it shares the boundary with Nepal as well. It lies almost at the boundary zone. So this is correctly matched. Then when we talk about Dampa, the Dampa Tiger Reserve. Now where is it situated? It is situated in Mizoram. Now why is it in news? It is in news because for the past two cases of tiger census, past two counts of tiger census, this has reported the presence of 0 tigers. Of 0 tigers. That is why this is in news. So second is incorrectly matched. Jessore Wildlife Sanctuary, that is basically correct, correctly matched, C. And Nugu Wildlife Sanctuary. Where is Nugu Wildlife Sanctuary? It is basically in the outskirts of the Bandipur Tiger Reserve. So that is situated in Karnataka. So here 3 of them, that is C, is the correct answer. Okay, so I hope you have gained some amount of new information. Basically, why it is in news, that NTCA recommends declaring Nugu as a core critical area of Bandipur. So because that was in news, hence this particular question. Now when we talk about the core critical area of Bandipur, Bandipur becomes an area of interest. Now how and why Bandipur becomes an area of interest? Because Bandipur, in the entirety of its stretch, all the way from its position and the contiguous zone of Nagarhole, of Mudumalai, it forms a kind of a wildlife corridor. The wildlife corridor, which is in the larger aspect of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. You have to understand that Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is the larger protected area, and this serves as a wildlife corridor between which two places? Between the region of the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. That is why this entire region around Bandipur, Mudumalai, etc., they experience very heavy movement of tiger population, elephant population, and in general the wild population oscillating between the Eastern and the Western Ghats owing to when it rains. That is why it is in this area that you will come across maximum amount of man-animal conflict. It is during this migration where they enter into human habitations and there are various different types of confrontations which happen. Now Nugu is another zone where you will find the presence of dry scrubland, that is presence of grasses, which is ideal for the herbivore population, and those herbivore population is relevant for the maintenance of the tigers, and also dry deciduous with patches of moist deciduous, with patches of moist deciduous. Okay, so that is what you find in the case of Nugu. So that is why it is being declared, and the recommendation is that core critical area of Bandipur, where entry should not be allowed, frequent passage should not be allowed, because that is where the tiger density is increasing. Now, owing to the concept of wildlife corridor, coming to the next question. Which of the following states does not possess a declared elephant corridor? Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Telangana. Where you don't have the presence of an elephant corridor. This is a very easy question if you apply logic. If you were to apply logic, it is a very easy question. Now, what is the relevance of corridor? What is a corridor in general? Wildlife corridor, elephant corridor, tiger corridor. So, nowadays, owing to anthropological interventions, you have significant fragmentation of habitats. Earlier, let's suppose the habitat for an organism was this big. Now that has been reduced into two smaller portions, and whatever wild area is present in between of natural vegetation, that serves as a corridor. Now this is very important to ensure the distribution of population of the wild animals as well. And it is in this area where the intervention has to be minimal. Otherwise, man-animal conflict, the destruction of their feeding habits, of their movement path, everything happens, right? So, which does not possess a declared elephant corridor? Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, they have a significant amount of elephant population? The correct answer is D, that is Telangana. Telangana does not have. Now, this was a directive issued or a detailed issued by the PIB, the government portal. So here you can see the kind of spell checks that they also need to follow. So Coal Ministry ensures utmost environment care while enhancing coal production. So here, mines falling under the Lemru Elephant Corridor, Chhattisgarh, had been denotified. So Lemru Elephant Reserve is amongst the latest elephant reserves which have been declared as a protected area. Elephant reserves have been declared as the protected region as per the program of Project Elephant. Project Elephant was started in 1992. And the conservation of elephants has been the foremost ideology and aim there. The 16 elephant range states spreading from the eastern to the southern part of India, all of them, wherever you have the elephant population, their elephant reserves had been declared. Now, you had the declaration, the recent declaration of an elephant reserve in the foothills of the Himalayas also. That is the Tarai Elephant Reserve, which is also a very large elephant reserve in terms of its size. It does include few of the protected areas such as the Katarnia Ghat Wildlife Sanctuary, etc. They are included within the Tarai Elephant Reserve. Now, understand, whenever you come across any of the elephant reserves, generally you will come across a viable tiger population also. Because elephants are present means dense vegetation would be present. If vegetation would be present, other species of herbivores would also be present. And that would mean tigers can also survive. But when we talk about the Tarai Belt, in the Tarai Belt, that is in northern UP, in the boundary region between India and Nepal, there you will also find a viable rhino population. Rhino population in that area which had been diminished during the British rule, that is again coming up and is rising up fast. Okay? So these are various elephant corridors. You can observe a high density of elephant corridors in the region of Nilgiris, high density of elephant corridors in the region of the Karjat Hills, in the region of Chhattisgarh, and in the boundary zone between Nepal, northern portion of West Bengal, and leading to the forested area of Assam. These are where you have these wildlife corridors, declared elephant corridors. So you don't have a declared elephant corridor in the region of Madhya Pradesh, in the region of Maharashtra, or in the region of Telangana as well. Okay? Yes, Tarai Elephant Reserve is in the region of Uttarakhand. This is where you have the Tarai Elephant Reserve which is being declared. Okay? Yes, most of the candidates are still learning about what is the gestation period of the female elephant, and that is because UPSC had asked this question once. So please understand, when we talk about UPSC asking questions, it likes to throw these kind of random facts so that the candidates keep on chasing those facts, and UPSC will ask you a different question next year. Okay, and in that particular aspect, many of them have started learning the gestation period for many different animals. So let me put a stop to it. UPSC is not interested in the gestation period. Why UPSC had asked the question is because elephants and their importance in maintenance of biodiversity and the threatened condition that they are facing. Elephants are also, I hope we are aware of that, elephants are also referred to as the natural gardeners of the ecosystem, and they are very important for maintenance of one particular kind of a biome. The maintenance of it, the upkeep of it, that is where elephants become very important. And what is that? That is basically the tropical savanna. Tropical savanna, where you will find that the elephants ensure that there is no overgrowth of vegetation, no overgrowth of grasses, and not many trees come up. Because in the savanna, you will find basically the aspect that you have very little amount of trees and large spread presence of grasses. So whenever a new shrub starts to grow and develop into a tree, it is crushed by the elephant, and wild growth of grasses, there also the elephants uproot a lot of them. Now, then consider the following statements about Project Tiger. Madhya Pradesh has got the maximum population of tigers in India. Mizoram has reported maximum percentage increase in the population of tigers. Maharashtra has got more number of tiger reserves as compared to Karnataka. How many of the statements given above is or are correct? So, this is about the tiger census now that the numbers have come out. So, that is where you can expect a state-wise analysis of the question also. So, here how many statements are correct? So, here majority of you are going with option A, that is only one. Then now the majority has changed. Okay. So, here basically as per Project Tiger, we have carried out tremendous amount of progress in terms of tiger population, with Madhya Pradesh having recorded the maximum population of tigers in India, followed by Karnataka. As per the previous census, the number was quite neck to neck, but as per the latest census of 2022, Madhya Pradesh has taken the lead. So, the first statement is correct. Mizoram has reported maximum percentage increase in the population of tigers. This is incorrect because Mizoram has recorded for the past two census the absolute zero amount of tigers. There have been passing tigers here and there which have been spotted, but not any particular viable tiger population which resides there. Maharashtra has got more number of tiger reserves as compared to Karnataka. This is basically correct. So, here two of the statements are correct. So, the correct answer is going to be B. Good. Majority of you have given the correct. So, here the correct answer is going to be B. That is, only two of them are correct. So, these are the various tiger reserves which are present. Now, here another kind of question can also be framed, which UPSC has done earlier, so you should be expecting that. And that is basically the tiger reserves on the boundary areas. The northernmost tiger reserve. Which is the northernmost tiger reserve that we have? We have the Rajaji Tiger Reserve in Uttarakhand. That is northernmost. The earliest declared tiger reserve is which one? The earliest one is basically Corbett. The highest density of tigers is to, as per the latest census, is found where? Highest density of tigers in India as of now is to be found in Jim Corbett. Okay. When we talk about Pilbhit, when we talk about Dudhwa, when we talk about Valmiki, when we talk about Buxa, even Manas, they share an international boundary. That is where you have the migration of the species from one country to another, which also happens. Okay. Now, here, if you take a look at the number of protected areas, so you will find that it is maximum in the region of Madhya Pradesh and in the region of Maharashtra. In the region of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, you have around 6 of these tiger reserves which are already there. Many of them are being designated and will be notified as a tiger reserve in the coming year. But when we talk about the region of Karnataka, Karnataka has got 5 of them. Okay, so that is the difference. You should not end up learning all of this, but a general idea. For example, when you consider some of the tiger reserves such as Simlipal, when you consider some of the regions such as Indravati, Udanti Sita Nadi, or Tadoba, or Navegaon, Nagzira, Achanakmar, all these are very vital elephant areas also. That is what I told you. Wherever you will find a significant amount of elephant population, generally tiger population is also going to be present there. Jim Corbett was the first tiger reserve which was declared as the Hemis protected area in pre-independent India way back in 1936. This was the first protected area that was declared in the country. So these facts you can get an idea. Dampa and Buxa are where the number of tigers are declining or have reached the level of 0 and they are not increasing. Okay. Now, another question associated with this tiger reserve. which has been in news. This tiger reserve, situated in the Vindhyas, has served as the previous hunting ground for the Maharajas of Rewa. Recently, Archaeological Survey of India discovered 26 Buddhist caves in the region associated with Mahayana sect of Buddhism dating back to 2nd to 5th century AD. The vegetation consists of sal and bamboo forests. Which of the tiger reserve has been mentioned in the paragraph above? Which of the tiger reserves has been mentioned in the paragraph above? Tadoba Andhari Tiger Reserve, Indravati Tiger Reserve, Pench Tiger Reserve, Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, which are the one mentioned here? So here, majority of you are correct. The correct answer is Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. Bandhavgarh basically has got its mythology dating back to the time of the Ramayana itself. Now, this has served as the ideal hunting ground for the Maharajas of Rewa. Later on, it was converted into a protected area. This is very well known for the Bandhavgarh fort. Now, why this has been in news? For multiple reasons. One of the reason that 2000-year-old modern society unearthed in the tiger reserve in Madhya Pradesh. So that is one of the reasons why it was in news. Other reason is that in the past year, there has been significant number of tiger deaths which have occurred. At a time you have 2 and again 3, again 2. So like that in the past year, Bandhavgarh has lost close to around 7 tigers. So that is why it is in news. Bandhavgarh is also the home to the very rare species of white tiger. Now when we talk about white tiger species, now is it a different gene altogether? Is it a different species like the Sumatran tiger, the extinct Tasmanian tiger, or the extinct various different types of tiger? Is it a different species altogether? No. This is basically a kind of a deformity due to the deformity in terms of the amount of melanin that is secreted by the body. Just like you have albinos amongst the population, just like that, these are considered to be like albino form of tiger population. Okay, so white tigers are also something that you will find in the region of Bandhavgarh. Now Bandhavgarh has been experiencing a slight decline in tiger population owing to 2 reasons. First of all, in this area the herbivore population is reducing. Now why is the herbivore population reducing? Herbivore population is reducing because in this particular area you have a growth of an invasive alien species. The invasive alien species. What is an invasive alien species? A species which is not naturally endemic to that region, not naturally to be found in that area, and that species which has basically been introduced there and has occupied the region and started growing incessantly with a very fast rate. So that is an invasive alien species. So in this area you have the invasive alien species with the name of Lantana camara, a bush kind of plant. This is a plant species. Now, something that you would have seen in your own backyard, something that you would have seen generally in the hedges also, where you will find very different coloration and different hues of flowers, very small patterned flowers which are present. Now they tend to grow so very quickly, they don't allow the other species to grow in that area, and other plant species are not allowed to grow because Lantana camara develops a thick bush, blocks the sunlight, and the other species are impacted thereby. So that is why, due to this, the herbivore population is reducing because the herbivores, they don't find the Lantana camara to be palatable. Regardless of whatever preconceived notion that we have that any plant herbivores will consume, it is not like that. They don't find this plant palatable, and that is why they are finding a shortage of food, which is impacting the tiger population also, due to which there is increased competition, due to which internal fights and quarrels, that is also reducing the population of tigers. Now, Which of the tiger reserves listed below are the smallest in terms of the core area? Bor Tiger Reserve, Panna Tiger Reserve, Namdapha Tiger Reserve, or the Sundarbans Tiger Reserve? This should be easy. So which of them are smallest in terms of the core area? So here, when you think about it, ideally, Bor Tiger Reserve, Panna Tiger Reserve, Namdapha and Sundarbans. So here most of you are correct. Where is Bor Tiger Reserve? Where is it situated? It is situated in Maharashtra. So this is basically, the answer is A. So Bor Tiger Reserve, again showing you the location of the Tiger Reserve. This is the Bor Tiger Reserve, this area. Now here, a new area has been notified as by the and has been recommended by NTCA to be included in the tiger territory, and that is where the size of it, even after including that, is very less. It is roughly around 400 to 500 square kilometer. Which is the largest tiger reserve that we have? This is a question that UPSC had also asked previously. The largest tiger reserve in terms of its area is basically Nagarjun Srisailam Tiger Reserve, Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam Tiger Reserve. That is basically the largest. NSTR is the largest in terms of area. Okay. Right. Now, here, this was the mention in the news story about the new notification which happened. Now, which of these protected areas has the maximum number of one-horned rhino in India? Dibru-Saikhowa, Orang, Pobitora, or Manas? Which of them has got the maximum number of one-horned rhino? Overall, when you consider the one-horned rhino population in India, so the one-horned rhino population in India overall is maximum where? Overall, it is maximum in Kaziranga. Okay. So that is where it is the maximum. Right? Now, other than Kaziranga, where is it that you will find this? Pobitora has got very high density in terms of the rhino, one-horned rhino population as well. Right? Manas has got little amount of rhino population. Around 40 of the individual rhinos are present in the region of Manas. So here, the correct answer is actually Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. That is where you have significant number. It was earlier reported that Orang has got the highest number of rhinos after Kaziranga, but then as per the rhino vision, when there was translocation and relocation of the rhinos outside from Manas, that is when many of them were basically put in Pobitora also, where the number has witnessed an increase. So this is where the density is very high. Other than Kaziranga, the density is highest. Okay? Right? Now, this is where it has basically been in news that Pobitora and the conservation and the rhino population, that is why it has been in news. Now, when we talk about one-horned rhino population, a brief idea about it, that this one-horned rhino population at one point of time extended across the entirety of the Tarai zone of India, from the region of Assam all the way extending into the region of UP. But then, due to incessant deforestation activity and poaching activity for their horns, these rhinos were being killed in large numbers. At the advent of the previous century, that is in the initial part of 1900s, the rhino population in our country was reduced to around single digits. From there, coming back and basically bouncing back, now we have close to around 4,000 rhino population. Significant number of rhinos in India. Which are the states where you have the rhino population? So in India, rhino population is typically to be found in 3 states. One is Assam, the other is West Bengal, then after that you have Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh, you have a floating rhino population around the region of Katarnia Ghat Wildlife Sanctuary, which moves into Nepal and keeps on moving to and fro. But in the region of, for example, Gorumara and in those areas, Manas, Orang, etc., you will have significant amount of rhino population. Okay. Now, rhinos also prefer the presence of grasses and grasslands, and in the region of Assam, you have a special variety which is known as elephant grass, which can grow up till 1 meter in height increase within a matter of few days as the rainfall approaches. Now, the rhino population in India has been increased, has been protected as per the India Rhino Vision. India Rhino Vision, which was launched in 2005, having an end date of 2020, had the aim to increase the rhino population to at least 3,000 in the region of Assam. Even though we have managed to take the population of rhinos to 3,000, but it did not exactly happen within the time limits. And around 2020, you also had the COVID pandemic, due to which the census exercise could not be carried out. Now here what is important for you to understand is that which are the other protected areas where the translocation and the relocation of these rhinos have happened. So across the 7 protected area in the region of Assam, the concept was that not only do we preserve the rhino population, but wherever possible, we will take the rhino from an excess population area to an area of lesser population density. It was under the aegis of this India Rhino Vision where you had the shifting of rhinos from the region of Manas into the surrounding areas also. So Kaziranga, Pabitora, Orang, Manas, Laukhova, then Burachapori and Dibru Saikova are the 7 protected areas of rhino population in Assam. This is relevant for your prelims. Okay, significant areas of rhino population in Assam. Now, after this, moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements about Chinnar Wildlife Sanctuary recently in news. It serves as the rehabilitation center for Indian star tortoise. Eurasian otter has been sighted in the sanctuary for the first time in Kerala. It is the only protected area in Kerala without any shola vegetation. Which of the above statements is or are correct? So here, when we talk about these statements, understand them and think about it, which of them are correct. Think about it carefully. Serves as the rehabilitation center for Indian star tortoise. Eurasian otter has been sighted in the sanctuary for the first time. So both these statements are correct, and it is the only protected area in Kerala without any shola vegetation. This is incorrect. You have many of the protected areas, particularly in the coastal area, where you don't have shola vegetation. Shola vegetation in southern India is found where? At an elevation where the temperature is lower. That is where you find the viable population or viable presence of shola vegetation. So here A, 1 and 2 only, that is going to be the correct answer. Okay, so this was the news that Eurasian otter discovered for the first time from Kerala. Now, otter species in themselves, they are partly, they need the presence of a water body nearby also, and partly terrestrial in terms of their habit. They are shy and nocturnal and are found near the small streams in the interior of the forest, and because they are nocturnal, they hunt their prey at night. As per the IUCN, what is the status that they have? The IUCN designation, basically, what is the status? They are designated as, so you have various varieties. Some of them are designated as near threatened, and some of them are declared as vulnerable. Okay, so you have 3 subspecies of otters which are to be found in India. Okay, now consider the following reserves regarding Singchung Bugun Reserve recently in news. Consider the following statements regarding the reserve. The reserve conserves the critically endangered bird species of Bugun leosechla. It is a part of Nokrek Biosphere Reserve. The reserve is home to red pandas and clouded leopard. Which of the above statements is or are correct? The reserve conserves the critically endangered bird species of Bugun leosechla, part of the Nokrek Biosphere Reserve. Reserve is home to red pandas and clouded leopards. So in general, when the candidates face this kind of a confusion, they end up marking all of them, isn't it? And they write it easy as well. Good. So here basically if you observe, then this reserve conserves the critically endangered bird Bugun leosechla. That is correct. This is why it has been in news around the region of Ettur Wildlife Sanctuary. That is where the locals, they have given their own land for the conservation of this protected area. Now, this particular protected area, that is when we talk about Singchung Bugun Reserve, this is situated in which particular state? It is situated in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. Now, when we talk about Nokrek Biosphere Reserve, amongst the smallest biosphere reserves in the country, is situated in Meghalaya. Okay, so the second one is incorrect. The reserve is home to red pandas and clouded leopard. So first and 3, they are correct. So the correct answer is going to be C. So Arunachal tribe donates land for critically endangered songbird, that is Bugun leosechla. Now this Bugun leosechla is to be also found another protected area with that news and with that name. Please don't get or please don't start panicking that where did this name come from. It is Ettur Wildlife Sanctuary where you will find them. Okay. So it is a part of that protected area. Now, consider the following statements about the Dibang Wildlife Sanctuary. It is the home of the rare species of Mishmi takin. NTCA has recommended the notification of the sanctuary as a tiger reserve. Situated in Assam, it is the home of the Idu Mishmi tribe. Which of the above statements is or are correct? So here, if you think about it, Dibang Wildlife Sanctuary, it had been in news again because of the NTCA recommendation for the notification, right? So which of the statements is or are correct? So is it the home of the rare species of Mishmi takin? The answer is no. It is not found there, right? So Mishmi takin, which is a species of a larger species of goat, if you think about it, has got very valuable wool associated. That is to be found in the region of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, NTCA has recommended the notification for the recommendation of this area, designation of an area as a tiger reserve. So that is correct. It is because of this that it has made news headlines, and this has been opposed by the local population of the Idu Mishmis, who basically feel that their control area, their area of dominance, or not dominance particularly, but where they can settle, they have been settled for a long period of time, they have carried out their normal human activities, that will be curtailed. So this is where the man-animal conflict is again to the fore. So the correct answer in this case is going to be B, that is 2 and 3 only, right? So this was the news story. The indigenous Idu Mishmis are protesting the proposed tiger reserve in the region of Arunachal. So that basically brings us to the end of the discussion for the questions associated with the important protected areas for the past year almost. Tomorrow when we meet again, we are going to take a discussion one notch higher, where today the questions also were basically kept slightly adaptable for you. Tomorrow we will come up with a slightly more tougher questions, and that will be for the species in news. There are biosphere reserves, the biodiversity heritage sites, all those areas. That is something we are going to cover in the marathon session. But these are the protected areas I want you to revise. Look at the location, look at the water bodies nearby. This is where you can easily end up scoring good amount of marks. I hope that this session has been helpful to you. It has added to your existing knowledge arsenal. If you have liked the content, if you have liked our initiative, please do not forget to click on the like, share and the subscribe button and comment in the section below. Till we meet again tomorrow, take care of yourself, revise, goodbye and have a good night.